This country shouldn't be where it is. This country shouldn't be in debt. There's no way. It is unjustifiable. I cannot, by the life in me, understand why we are where we are. I cannot. I refuse to embrace.
Botswana just did the unthinkable. No more raw diamonds. No more untouched minerals are leaving their soil. The gates are closed. The rules are rewritten. The entire mining world is on edge. Why would Africa's diamond giant pull the plug now? And what does this mean for the continent and the world? Let's find out. It started with a single signature, a pen, a paper, and a quiet declaration behind the thick doors of Botswana's State House. But within 24 hours, shockwaves had already reached mining headquarters in London, diamond exchanges in Antwerp, and copper traders in Shanghai. Botswana had officially banned the export of all raw diamonds and unprocessed minerals. No delays, no loopholes, no exceptions. The announcement came directly from President Duma Boko, whose newly formed administration isn't known for hesitation. Flanked by members of the Ministry of Minerals and Energy, he calmly declared that Botswana would no longer be a supplier of raw wealth for foreign prosperity. From now on, the president stated, "Every ounce we dig must be worked, refined, and finished on our land." By the way, we have launched a merch that honors the African leaders who are taking a stand for Africa. Check them out. To show you also stand with loyal sons of Africa, no matter where you are. Coming back, it wasn't just rhetoric. A sweeping executive directive followed immediately, grounding multiple shipments at airports and border points. Containers of copper concentrate and diamond parcels were halted, pending confirmation of domestic processing. Mining companies were left scrambling. Some paused operations. Others sought emergency meetings with ministers. Foreign investors began issuing carefully worded statements about policy clarity and operational review. But behind the diplomatic language, one thing was clear. Botswana wasn't bluffing. The ban applies across the board. Raw diamonds, copper concentrates, nickel, and other minerals can no longer be exported unless value has been added within Botswana itself. In practice, that means minerals must be refined, cut, polished, or processed by domestic firms or partnerships based on Botswana soil. It's a radical move, especially for a country that has built much of its economy on the export of raw resources. Botswana's diamond sector alone accounts for nearly 30% of its GDP and over 80% of its export revenue. For decades, rough diamonds extracted from mines like Jwaneng and Orapa would be packaged, priced, and shipped out within days, destined for India's cutting houses or Belgium's luxury vaults. That model just collapsed overnight. Government insiders say the new export controls are just the beginning. A legislative package is being prepared to legally bind this policy into a long-term economic strategy. Companies that fail to comply could lose their mining licenses. On the flip side, firms that invest in local processing, setting up cutting factories, mineral refineries, or training centers, will reportedly gain tax incentives and fast-track permits. The move may seem abrupt, but it's been brewing behind the scenes for months. According to sources close to the Ministry of Trade, Boko's inner circle has been quietly studying the failures of African resource policies, especially in countries that have remained dependent on foreign processing. Their conclusion? If Africa wants to be rich, it can't keep exporting poor. Even Botswana's partners, such as De Beers, have acknowledged the seriousness of the shift. Operations at some mines have been suspended, not due to strikes or protests, but due to policy. They are now reassessing logistics and capacity to bring more of the value chain into Botswana itself. The world, too, has taken notice. The World Diamond Council, international commodity markets, and foreign embassies are all watching with raised eyebrows. Some fear a ripple effect. Others quietly admit Botswana might just be showing the rest of Africa what real leverage looks like. So here we are, a landlocked country, small in size but mighty in stones, has just changed the rules of the game. Not with sanctions, not with threats, but by simply refusing to play the old one anymore. But if this is the new game, where value must be earned and kept at home, what's driving such a drastic high-risk change? Let's pause for a second to say big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. The ban didn't come from ideology. It came from pressure, the kind that builds slowly beneath the surface, until a government has two options: surrender to collapse or flip the entire system on its head. By early 2025, Botswana's economic foundation, built almost entirely on diamonds, had begun to buckle. Global demand for natural diamonds plunged, dragging prices down with it. In just 18 months, rough diamond values declined by over 40%, sending Botswana's export earnings into a freefall. But the warning signs had been flashing long before the bottom fell out. A quiet revolution had already begun across jewelry markets. Lab-grown diamonds, cheaper, chemically identical, and increasingly accepted, were no longer fringe products. Gen Z buyers, sustainability-conscious millennials, and even traditional jewelers were shifting away from mined stones. In places like New York, London, and Tokyo, real diamonds were no longer the flex they once were. The illusion of eternal scarcity had cracked. Botswana, the second-largest producer of natural diamonds in the world, was left exposed. Unlike countries with diversified economies, Botswana had leaned heavily on a single commodity. Its government budget, public wages, and infrastructure spending were all intimately tied to De Beers' quarterly performance. So when sales tanked, the effects weren't confined to spreadsheets. Hospitals delayed equipment upgrades, schools froze hiring, rural development funds shrank. To make matters worse, foreign firms held most of the leverage. The raw stones dug from Botswana's rich soil were immediately whisked away to India or Belgium, where the real profits were made through cutting, polishing, and retail. Botswana saw only a fraction of the total value its resources created. It exported wealth in its cheapest form, then imported it back at 10 times the price. This model had survived for decades because diamond prices were high enough to cushion the imbalance. But now, with the market collapsing, the system's flaws became unbearable. It wasn't just inefficient, it was dangerous. Botswana had no control over its economic heartbeat. President Duma Boko's government inherited this fragile setup, and according to insider reports, they immediately launched an economic review upon taking office. The findings were damning. For every $100 earned globally from a Botswana diamond, the country kept less than $10 in local value. The rest vanished through foreign processing, shipping, branding, and retail markups. The government's economists warned, if the market continues to fall and Botswana keeps exporting raw materials, fiscal collapse becomes a real risk. That was the turning point. Not ideology, not nationalism, necessity. The solution? Break the pattern. Stop exporting value. Start capturing it. But doing so would require more than a policy memo. It would require radical structural change. That's why the ban was paired with a broader strategy to rebuild the value chain inside Botswana, from mine to market. The government began drafting legal frameworks, exploring incentives for domestic processing, and reaching out to new partners willing to co-invest in technology transfers, industrial training, and local employment. Critics argued the move was too risky, especially in the middle of a market downturn. But to President Boko's team, not acting was the bigger risk. Waiting for the global market to recover would mean watching Botswana sink further into dependency. The country had spent decades digging for its riches, only to see the profits accumulate in foreign hands. Now that pipeline is being sealed. The crisis made one thing clear: Botswana's wealth must be earned and retained at home, or it isn't wealth at all. But how exactly does a country with limited infrastructure and industrial experience process everything it digs? Can Botswana realistically build this new system from the ground up? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. When Botswana slammed the brakes on raw exports, it wasn't just rejecting a system, it was announcing the birth of another. The ban may have looked like a shutdown from the outside, but within Botswana's borders, a massive industrial engine is just beginning to turn. Behind the closed mine shafts and paused export shipments, something new is quietly being constructed: an entirely domestic value chain. Botswana's strategy is not to sit on its resources until global prices bounce back. Instead, It's to turn every carat and kilogram into a catalyst for local transformation. That starts with infrastructure, not roads or ports this time, but factories, vocational schools, and high-tech workshops designed to handle every stage of mineral processing. The vision is simple. If wealth is going to be extracted, then every step of the value chain should remain under Botswanan control. As of mid-2025, the government has unveiled a bold initiative, the National Processing and Beneficiation Program, NPBP. This program earmarks nearly $500 million for domestic industrial capacity building, sourced from a combination of redirected state mining revenues and strategic investment from Africa-focused development banks. The goal? To construct the continent's most advanced diamond cutting and copper refining facilities, not in Europe or Asia, but in the heart of southern Africa. Construction has already begun on 3 major diamond economic zones, one in Gaborone, another near the Orapa mine, and a third in Francistown. These zones will house state-of-the-art polishing labs, automated sorting facilities, training academies, and even jewelry design studios, where Botswana's artisans can move beyond raw extraction to branding and exporting finished luxury goods. And this time, it's not just about diamonds. The government has quietly signed deals with South Korean and Chinese partners to help build modular copper and nickel refineries, capable of processing the concentrates previously shipped abroad. These facilities will be partially state-owned to ensure that profits circulate within the country, and agreements are being drafted to mandate local hiring quotas and knowledge transfer plans. Job creation is central to the plan. Where raw exports once enriched a handful of elite stakeholders, local processing can employ tens of thousands, from factory workers and lab technicians to logistics managers and designers. The NPBP estimates that more than 38,000 new jobs could be created within the next 5 years if even 60% of Botswana's mineral output is processed domestically, and it goes deeper than employment. National pride is on the line. The image of Botswana shipping out rough stones only to import them back as high-priced jewelry is something President Boko wants to eliminate from the national psyche. His administration has publicly backed initiatives to brand and sell Botswana's diamonds under a new national label, bypassing the De Beers auction houses entirely. That move alone could change how the world sees African luxury. But skeptics remain. Critics point out that diamond processing is a precision craft, often requiring years of training, specialized machinery, and vast electricity supplies, things Botswana is still scaling up. The government's response has been swift. It has launched the Botswana Industrial Skills Academy BISA to begin training the next generation of technicians, while pushing for rapid expansion of solar and hydroelectric power to feed these new industries. Of course, none of this is guaranteed. Botswana is walking a tightrope between ambition and execution. But for the first time in its post-independence history, the country is not asking what the world wants from its minerals. It's asking what it can do with them itself. Still, one major question remains. How are foreign corporations, especially giants like De Beers, responding to this shift in control? And can Botswana manage the potential blowback from breaking free of the old partnerships? While bulldozers in Gaborone break ground for new factories, boardrooms in London, Mumbai, and Tel Aviv are echoing with alarm. Botswana's refusal to export raw minerals has not only shifted its economic trajectory, but it has also thrown the entire global diamond and resource trade into strategic confusion. And the tremors are only just beginning. For decades, global corporations structured their entire supply chains around one basic certainty. Africa would dig and they would process. It was a convenient, high-margin model. Botswana played a central role in this arrangement, not just as a diamond supplier, but as a reliable, compliant node in a global system that quietly extracted maximum value abroad. That compliance is now gone. The most visible ripple was felt by De Beers, which has long maintained an intricate partnership with the Botswana government through their joint venture, Debswana. While the venture gave Botswana partial ownership and significant revenues, De Beers maintained control over marketing, pricing, and downstream operations. With the ban in place, that balance has been upended. Suddenly, De Beers can no longer export raw stones in bulk from Botswana without engaging with local cutters, polishers, and value-added partners. Their margins have tightened, shipments have stalled. And the prestige of managing the world's most stable diamond-producing region is being replaced with uncertainty and recalculation. Behind closed doors, industry analysts confirm that some mines have temporarily paused operations, not only due to weak demand, but also to restructure supply chain logistics that now need to include domestic processing. Freight contracts, insurance clauses, customs relationships, all of it must now be rewritten to adapt to Botswana's new laws. And it isn't just about diamonds. Copper traders, especially from East Asia, are confronting similar delays. Contracts that were once based on fast, low-cost mineral extraction are now tangled in Botswana's new value chain requirements. Even investors in unrelated sectors are reportedly nervous, worried that the country's assertive policy model might spread to other commodities like coal, uranium, or rare earths. Yet, while multinationals scramble, African leaders are taking notes. From the DRC to Namibia, discussions have accelerated around implementing similar bans or tightening beneficiation laws. The African Union Commission on Trade and Industry has reportedly requested a formal review of Botswana's approach, with rumors swirling of a continent-wide policy summit aimed at revisiting Africa's position in global mineral markets. Meanwhile, traditional processing hubs in India and Belgium are bracing for long-term losses. In Surat, India, where nearly 90% of the world's diamonds are cut and polished, industry spokespeople are already warning of job losses if Botswana's model gains traction in other producing nations. Antwerp's diamond bourses, once proud cornerstones of global luxury, now face the unsettling prospect of sourcing fewer stones and far more expensive ones as African nations push for finished product exports only. And yet, this is not an isolationist revolt. Botswana has left the door open for foreign investment in local processing, inviting companies to move their factories into Botswana instead of importing its resources. Several mid-tier firms have already begun early-stage negotiations to establish joint ventures with Botswana's Ministry of Trade, realizing that the new gold rush isn't in extraction, it's in partnership on Botswana's terms. This is why critics who expected Botswana to face immediate international backlash have been proven wrong, for now. Rather than being punished or sanctioned, the country is being courted. The global economy still needs Botswana's diamonds and minerals, but now they'll have to play by a new set of rules. Of course, negotiating power doesn't last forever. If the transition drags on, or if the new domestic infrastructure can't meet industry standards, those same partners could withdraw, leaving Botswana's ambitions stranded. But if Botswana can hold the line, it might be the first African country to flip the entire model and walk away with more than just promises. And that leads us to the final and most pressing question. Is this just a bold experiment or the beginning of real, irreversible transformation for the entire continent? What began as a shock policy is now evolving into something much bigger. Botswana's ban on raw mineral exports is no longer just a local headline. It's rapidly becoming a case study in economic sovereignty. But the final chapter has not yet been written. The question hanging in the air is as heavy as the minerals still lying beneath Botswana's soil. Can this model truly last? And more importantly, can it scale across the continent? Botswana is not the first African country to talk about beneficiation. For decades, leaders across the continent have declared intentions to process raw materials domestically. Policies have been drafted, conferences held, slogans repeated. Yet few have followed through. Why? Real beneficiation is expensive, politically risky, and demands a long-term national commitment. What sets Botswana apart now is not just that it passed a ban, but it's that the government seems ready to endure the short-term turbulence for a longer-term vision. This is where transformation begins, not in press releases, but in sacrifice. And Botswana is making it. The short-term costs are real. Export revenues have dipped, production has slowed, international partnerships are being renegotiated, and the domestic workforce is still catching up to the demands of a high-skill, high-tech industrial base. But if Botswana can sustain the disruption, it stands to fundamentally restructure how wealth is created and retained in Africa. Let's consider the long game. At its core, Botswana's new model is about control. Control over pricing, control over supply chains, control over labor markets, control over how a nation's resources are used to build its future, not someone else's. This is a dramatic reversal of the traditional African role in the global economy, where value is extracted at the source and processed for profit abroad. If the model succeeds, Botswana won't just be a mine. It could become a manufacturing and branding powerhouse. Imagine walking into a high-end store in Paris or Dubai and seeing luxury jewelry tagged, designed, cut, and finished in Botswana. Imagine copper wires in smart devices that say, refined in Botswana. That label would no longer represent a resource. It would represent a nation's pride, expertise, and economic strength. This vision also challenges Africa's long-standing dependence on global financial institutions and commodity price swings. With greater local processing, Botswana could stabilize its revenue base, diversify its exports, and build industries that insulate it from external shocks. Instead of reacting to global demand, it could begin shaping it. And for other African nations watching from the sidelines, this is a revelation. The experiment is proving that a small, landlocked country with limited industrial history can stand up to the giants and demand fairer terms. That changes everything. It sparks new debates in Lusaka, Kinshasa, Windhoek, and Maputo. If Botswana can do it, why not us? Of course, risks remain. If global companies choose to sidestep Botswana entirely or find cheaper alternatives elsewhere, the economy could face sustained pressure. If domestic infrastructure fails to scale fast enough, processing bottlenecks could damage the sector's credibility. And if the political will falters in the face of elite pushback or popular impatience, the entire project could stall. But for now, the commitment appears unshaken. Botswana is not merely reacting to a crisis. It's consciously stepping into the unknown, trying to construct a new kind of African economy where value is not something shipped away, but something built and owned from within. This isn't just economic policy, it's narrative warfare. It's a small nation telling the world, we're no longer a pit to be emptied, we're a force to be reckoned with. And if that message spreads, Africa might finally break the chain that's bound it for centuries, not with protest, but with production. Should every African country follow Botswana's lead and stop exporting raw resources? Can Africa truly become rich if it keeps letting others process its wealth? Let us know in the comment section. Is this the beginning of economic freedom or just another risky gamble? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.